All right, y'all. Dr. Manny St. Victor. I'm here with board certified hypnotist Paul Ramsey. Again, today's episode, we're talking about what are you going to do with someone once you've got them in a hypnotic trance.
Yeah, right.
We're talking about utilization and suggestions and how to create suggestions that are most effectively delivered.
That's the goal.
Yes.
that'd be nice. That'd be a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I laugh about it, but it's people when people ask me about, what's it like to hypnotize people, and people say, is it hard? And my standard answer is like, hypnotizing people is actually really easy. It's figuring out what to do with them once you get them hypnotized that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're built, right? We're built with these mechanisms for trance. We're built with many ways to slip in and out of trance throughout our day. So activating that is no big deal. But it's, again, that theme that we've come back to over and over again of like, but how do people make meaning? How do the words that you and I use have subtle differences in the way you perceive them versus the way that I perceive them? And how do we string together the right combination of words so that they have the right meaning for someone so that it helps them create effective change? That's the real challenge.
Yep. Yeah. Now, as I said, I was going to look up utilization behavior, and it fits in, so I can give it now or I can give it later.
Let's start with that, because I do think that when I say utilization hypnotically, I have this feeling that it's a little different than the way you think of utilization when you think of utilization behavior. So let's cover that.
Okay, utilization behavior is a neurological problem where they also call it environmental dependency syndrome, where you have a patient after they've had damage to the front or the left or right or both frontal lobes. The way you do it, you'll be talking to the patient about whatever, and you put a cup on the table, and they immediately reach out and they grab it, and it's basically the frontal lobe serves the inhibition function, because you have all these scripts waiting to be triggered at different times. They're ready, aim, fire. And so you have part of the population, and it's two core theories about it. Two core mechanisms. They're saying it's mirror neurons, and the other mechanism, I'm trying to think. And it's the default mode network, which we did the video about a few weeks ago in our neuroscience series.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have the mirror neurons, or the social mimicry. So the level to which you're able to kind of behave on your own despite what everyone else in the room is doing.
Okay. So important distinction here, and this is great. Here I was just talking about the difference in the way people perceive language, and what we're definitely not talking about today when we talk about utilization is what you just talked about. Yeah. We're talking about utilization hypnotically in a more traditional sense that reflects the idea of just how do you use the state? How do you utilize the trance state to get things done for and with people?
Okay.
All right, so that's,
I differentiated that because I think conceptually, a lot of times you'll see a bunch of jargon and you'll see a bunch of stuff written, and it's important not to fall down the path of reading stuff that's in the wrong basket.
Yeah.
Just closely like used in the same field.
So the classic traditional model for the hypnosis experience is induction, deepening, utilization, emergence. Yep. Real simple, 4-part. You induce hypnosis, you deepen hypnosis, you utilize the hypnotic state, and then you take people out. You help them emerge. Okay. So that's kind of the pattern of what we're following. We've talked about induction. We talked about deepening in the last video. Now we're talking about utilization. And the way you utilize is you give people suggestions. So the function, not the function, but the focus of this particular video is really on, okay, but how? Like, how do you build a proper suggestion? How do you deliver that suggestion? And there's a lot to talk about. So today's video should really be viewed by anyone who watches it as sort of the beginning of that discussion. This is the kind of thing that hypnotists spend years working on, really. Crafting good suggestions, crafting strong suggestions, figuring out when to give what suggestion. It's not a concrete linear formula. This is where sort of we know there's science behind hypnosis, but there's also a little bit of an art form to it. And this is where, you want to consider some of the science aspects of how we know the brain works and how we can take advantage of that. But there's also a little bit of art here, the ability to assess your client and be a good observer and take what you observe and use it to inform how you might craft a suggestion that's going to work particularly well for that person. So the first thing I would say you want to start with goes back to the previous video, is at the most basic level, whether you're doing heterohypnosis with someone else or whether you're practicing self-hypnosis on your own, you need to be sure, first of all, that whatever it is you're trying to do utilization-wise is supported by the level of depth that the person is at. So just to kind of revisit what we talked about in the last video, we talked about that Aaron scale with 6 levels and how some phenomenon cannot happen at the lower levels. You have to get people to at least a 4 or a 5 or a 6. So let's say you're trying to learn, this is a great concrete example, let's say you're trying to learn self-hypnosis for pain management. You can't take away pain in the first 3 levels. You just can't do that. If you want to call glove anesthesia, you can sort of ameliorate pain to some extent with glove anesthesia, but you're not going to do it in those lower levels. You need to get up to 4, 5, 6. So you really want to be able to, you're going to have analgesia at 4, which is feeling pressure but no pain. Really, you'd like to get to 5, where you can create real anesthesia, no sense of pressure, no sense of pain. So if you're practicing self-hypnosis, one of your early goals has to be to find your way of getting yourself to at least level 4, preferably level 5, before you start giving yourself suggestions for the management of pain. Make sense?
Yeah. Now, glove hand, is it glove anesthesia?
Yep. Analgesia. Yep.
Okay. So glove analgesia. What is that?
It's the idea of, like, imagine that you pull on a rubber glove, like a thick rubber glove, and then you had someone go with a needle. You might feel the pressure of that needle pushing down on the glove and pushing your hand, but you wouldn't feel the pinprick of it.
Okay.
So that's analgesia, is that kind of a sensation. There's a feeling of pressure, but there is not pain.
Okay.
So that's your level 4 on Aaron scale. You'd really, though, I think, like to get to a place for your own peace of mind and confidence where you go to 5, where it's just like the hand has been in a bucket of ice water for 20 minutes and it's just numb.
Okay.
Like, numbed right out. And then there's really, like, if I touch the back of the hand, I don't even feel the touch. And I certainly don't feel if I jabbed it with a needle, I don't feel that.
Okay.
That's like, now you've got some stuff going on, So again, trying to stay with concrete stuff, if you wanted to you want to use it at the dentist and you don't want to have to get Novocaine, you need to get to that, really that 5 would be nice to get to that level 5. So now if you want to quit smoking, there's no level like that. It's a behavioral habit reframe that you're trying to achieve. Yeah. People decide consciously to quit smoking, and through sheer willpower and determination, they quit smoking, right? They just decide. So you don't have to say, I can't quit smoking unless I get to level 4 on Aaron scale. It's not like that. But for some of these phenomenon hypnotically that you want to produce, there would be a level that you need to get to. So I think that's my overarching point is that's the first thing, is knowing, is this something that I would need to have like a benchmark level of depth for? And if so, I have to have a way to know that I'm there before I start giving myself those suggestions.
Okay.
All right. Now, in terms of self-awareness things, habit things, right? The way that I want to view myself, the way that I want to think about myself, the way I want my self-talk to be, the way I want to change how I look at habits. We don't have to worry about depth so much with that. So then it's more, I want to get absorbed and focused. I want to narrow my focus so that I'm less distracted by things in the world around me and more focused on the change that I want to create for myself. Yes?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Then it comes down to, okay, so how do you craft the best suggestions possible for when I get to that place where I'm like, okay, I'm focused, I'm open to creating this change for myself, I'm ready to go. What do I say? And then we start getting into that next level of like, how do you build a good suggestion? I think the first one is simplicity.
Okay.
Now, Manny, you know this. Cognitively, how many units or things does the brain like to handle at any given point?
The rumor used to be 7 plus or minus 2, but I believe Kahneman's approach 4. And after 4, you go to chunking. You start bringing things together and coming up with sort of an inferred meaning. So you get a message.
Because the brain doesn't want to work too hard, right?
Yep.
It wants efficiency. The brain's kind of lazy. So you should take that into account hypnotically. Don't get yourself into this wonderful self-hypnotic state and then say, and every day I will lose less weight, I'll be less stressed, I'll be more patient with people. Don't hit yourself with a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Simplify it. Take one task or growth area at a time and just focus on creating positive change in that one growth area or task. Make sense?
Yep, I like that.
Okay, so I think the first thing to think about is simplicity. And what I would recommend to people is literally like you brainstorm this stuff. You sit down and you say, what do I want to achieve for myself? And you start listing things. And now you say, okay, what's the most important thing on that list for me right now? And you pick one. Now what you want to do is, let's say that on that list it's, I want to be happier. That's too simple, right? Yeah. Or the reality is it's not simple at all. In order to be happier, there's a whole bunch of things that need to happen.
Yep.
And then so now we need to chunk it down.
Yep.
You have to then say, how will I know that I'm happy? What has to happen in order for me to know that I'm happy? And you brainstorm those things. I need to feel financially safe and secure. I need to have a loving relationship with someone. I need to have respect at work. You know, and you say all these things. If I want to really feel happy, I got to have all these things. And by the time you brainstorm that, there's 10 or 12 things. Well, again, you don't want to focus in terms of doing hypnosis on all 10 or 12 things at once. The subconscious mind is not going to be able to focus on drawing you, attracting you toward those things that you say are important. So you have to pick either within, let's say there's literally 10 things, look for a theme that maybe runs through 3 or 4 of them and focus on that theme. I want to have better relationships with people at work, and I want to get along with my parents better, and I need to have a loving relationship with a partner. Well, really, that's all relationships. So maybe you focus self-hypnotically on fostering more positive, loving relationships in general.
Yep.
And then each time you practice hypnosis, you can give your subconscious a specific visual image, symbol, metaphor of what that would be for you. When I see my parents, I'm grateful and glad to be with them, and I focus on how lucky I am to have them in my life. Something like that, where that's a specific image of when I'm with them, I'm happy.
Yep.
I don't, you know, and that's what you're working on. You hone it down to a specific image, because again, you know this, the brain does not do well with generalities like happy, you know, wealthy. What is wealthy?
Yep.
Right? I want to be wealthy. Well, what is that?
Yeah, because you can't aim at something that you can't visualize, and you won't recognize the signs along the way that it's
right. Exactly. You got to have a target. If you want to hit the target, you have to define the target. And that's a big thing that a lot of people in self-hypnosis, they don't practice enough because they're not doing it every day like a hypnotist is. But you can do it. You just have to practice. So you define this really specific, concrete thing. And ideally, it's a picture. You define it so well that it's like a beautiful photo in your mind or a gorgeous oil painting of what you want in your mind. And you can see all the details of it. You can see if it has you in it, you can see yourself and how you want to carry yourself and how you want your face to express. And, like you've got it. And then those things are all defined. This is the way I want to be. This is the way I want to live. This is what I want to have for myself.
Yep. And some people find it's helpful to create a vision board.
Yeah.
Some do better with external, like,
for
reminders.
People who are familiar, tell them what a vision board is, Manny.
A vision board is you project yourself into the future, and you think of the impossible things that you would love to have.
Right.
A yacht.
Yeah. So most commonly, I don't know about you, but you usually see people like go into magazines, right? And they'll clip out photos of the things that they want to move toward, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm actually looking at ours over there right now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because we have my daughter on the way, and when we had put that together, we were having some complications with Amy's pregnancy, and like dead in the middle is this little girl, and I got to remind her of that. That's interesting. And it says under it, "I am happy." So that's cute. Okay, carry on.
I have one friend. This is wonderfully simple. I have one friend who, when he comes in the door of his house, he has like a little chalkboard for reminders, and it has 3 hooks to like hang his keys on. And on the chalkboard, he's got enough space that it never leaves always. He just has love on his thing. So it's like a reminder all the time of be loving, live in a loving way. That's really something he wants to be reminded of every day. So that's sort of a waking suggestion. He's getting it visually whenever he leaves the house, he walks past it. Whenever he comes in the house, he walks past it. That's more of a waking thing. But you can do these same things in this heightened state of suggestibility, right? You can create this focused state, and you can give yourself these images. I feel like there was one. So we got simplicity, specificity, and then positivity.
Yeah.
So another thing that's really fascinating about the way our culture works today is people have a tendency to frame what they want. Literally, they talk about it in terms of what they don't want,
which is useless.
Right? And that's not helpful. And we do it all the time. If I say to someone, "Well, what do you wish was going on in your life?" And a client might say, "Well, I'll tell you what I tell you, I don't want to be in debt anymore. I don't want to be in debt, and I don't want to have a job that I don't really love, and I don't want to feel pressure to keep my kids like financially safe." And it's all what they don't want, what they don't want, what they don't want.
Yeah, don't look down.
Right?
Or they say, don't think about white rabbits.
Right.
And the science behind that is that your brain creates a representation of the things that you think of, that you conceive. So if you're creating these negative representations, what you develop is, and then you negate it, you still thought the thing. When someone says, don't do something, you have to conceive the thing and then remind yourself, don't do it. And what that does is it wastes the energy so that you're not going to recognize the alternative behavior.
Right.
You got to say the thing that you want. You want to think healthy. You don't want to think, I won't be overweight anymore.
Yeah. And it's really, it's profound to me how often I see it the other way. I mean, nearly constant that when people come to me, they're framing everything in their lives by focusing on what's happening that they wish wasn't happening. And one of my sort of mantras or key phrases I use with people all the time is I say it's about your intention and about your attention.
Yeah.
Decide what you want your intention to be, and then because you're choosing that intention, make sure that how you spend your attention is in support of your intention.
Yep.
And that's, I mean, that's seriously, for anyone who watches this video, like, that's like worth $5,000, right? Like, if you can just get that habit into your life every day, if you can start your day when you wake up and you can say, what's my intention for today?
Yep.
Is it to push myself to grow and learn? Is it to be kind to other human beings? Is it to be loving and forgiving to myself? Like, if I could pick a thematic intention for today, what would it be?
Yep.
And then once you've defined that, commit yourself to making your attention go to as many things as you can over the course of the day which support that intention. Your life will bloom. Like, really, really.
And I say one of the things that I discuss in my upcoming paper, and I'm doing some research, is evoking your core values. You gotta be clear on your core values so you know where you're headed, what your subconscious goals are, what things mean something to you. If you take
Right.
someone else's core values, you end up going down the wrong road. You end up environmentally dependent. You know?
Yep. So that really, at the simple, like today's our introduction to getting people to think about suggestions level, that's really it. When you get yourself to a place where you know that your level of depth supports whatever kind of change work you want to do, then from there, it's about being specific and being simple and being positive in the construction of your suggestions. And from there, it's going to take practice. And so what I think really is a good thing to do, and I do this as a professional hypnotist, when I have a client who I'm working with, I brainstorm, I write the sentence, and I write it again a different way, and I write it again a different way, and I keep rewriting it until I get it where I'm like, yeah, that's the right feel for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you another thing, that this isn't quite so helpful if you're doing self-hypnosis, but when you're working with other people, probably the best thing to do is called the echo effect, is you listen to that person and you give their language right back to them. So if you've had a good conversation with a client and you've elicited these things from them, you've got them to define for you what they really want as opposed to what they don't want. The most specific version of that you can elicit from them so that you've really got it concrete, and then you've also created the simplest specific version of that. Now, if you've done a good job of eliciting that from them, and you've been taking notes, then you turn right around, you get them hypnotized, you deepen, you get to the time for utilization, and you give them back their language. Because their language suits them better than your language does.
Absolutely.
And that's another key thing. And I was really excited when I went out recently. I went out to the HypnoThoughts Live conference in Las Vegas and sat through several sessions where that came up over and over again. And I was like, oh, that's so great to hear other people talking about how important this is. Like, you're trying to help people. You don't have to impose your language constraints on them. You need to, like, step into their world. You need to talk to them in the way that makes sense to them. And it's so simple, but we take it for granted. If I ask you, Manny, to draw me a tree, what kind of tree do you think you would draw?
Like a stick figure tree.
Okay.
I don't know why we're laughing.
Well, that's a funny idea, a stick figure tree. So,
Yeah.
like, if you asked me to draw a tree, I have a tree in my family farm in New Hampshire that is my favorite place. When I go see my parents, I go and I sit under this birch tree. And usually birch trees are kind of gnarly and dirty looking, but for some reason, this one is like way bigger than birch trees usually get. It's like big. And it's real clean. You know how birches get that paper, it peels.
Yeah.
Bark. It has all of the bark on it. It doesn't peel for some reason. It stays. It's smooth. It's beautiful. And you can sit under this birch tree. And my parents live on this farm that's up on a ridge in New Hampshire. Beautiful view for miles and miles and miles. And it's one of my favorite things to do is just go visit my mom and my dad and grab a lawn chair and plant it under this birch tree and just be happy. And so, like, see how specific that just really was, right?
Yeah.
That's my tree.
Yep.
You know? And that's what you want to do with people is whatever the tree is, you got to get to their version of it. And if you don't, it doesn't match up in their head. Yep. You know, someone, if I say draw me a tree, maybe they draw a Christmas tree. or an apple tree because they used to go apple picking when they were kids and it was one of their favorite things to do in the world. You can take that and apply it to pretty much everything, right? Like, what is draw me happy? Draw me love. You know, like, that's the whole thing with language, is it's got an efficiency to it to some extent, but if you want to get to that deeper level, you have to take the time and do the work and make it inefficient, really. You got to get to that greater meaning. So that's what we've got to do with suggestions too.
Yep. And that takes listening, is the thing. When someone's talking to a person that they trust is listening to them, because they're not, a lot of times people, the attunement that you get where your neurons are vibrating the same as the other person, sort of like when you turn your radio to a certain station to hear the station because it's on the right frequency, you've got to be listening to what they're saying. If you don't understand part of it, you have to ask for a clearer expression of it. You have to ask about the detail. You have to be curious about what the person is trying to tell you, not how you can rebuttal, have a rebuttal ready, have something clever to say. When someone's with you at a treatment, they're there to get better. They're there to hear what's going on inside them, outside, and have their reality validated by someone they trust.
Yeah. So that's it for me, man. You got questions?
Nah, man.
Anybody in the studio audience have questions, feel free to fire them off.
Yep. Now, we said we'd invite some folks in. I wonder if anyone's interested in hopping in.
Yeah, I sent out some invites and no one jumped in. Everyone kind of said they just wanted to hang out on the event page for this. So they're sort of chatting and making a few small comments there.
Cool.
This is kind of cool. Carrie Butler wrote, perception is so profound, and when it is being altered intentionally, yet more organically, in parentheses, without drugs, it helps us see farther. Hypnosis has the potential of providing us an additional means to interpret and design cognitive landscapes.
I think that's beautiful.
How cool is that?
It's beautiful indeed.
That really is. That's a great model for thinking about that.
Yeah, and I've also had a problem with lobbing pills into people's consciousness, to fix a problem. And the pill is in your body affecting all of your systems. And each system is so refined to do a thing so well that the best way to repair them is to take the time to go inside and find what's going wrong and fix it.
Yeah.
Learn how to think correctly.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it sort of reminds me, the idea of designing cognitive landscapes sort of reminds me of, there's a saying in the neuro-linguistic programming world, the map.
Yeah.
And what goes with that is the map is not the territory.
Yep.
And that does sort of connect to what Carrie's talking about, that we have a map, a representation for how we think things work, but that's not the same as if you're on the physical territory. Like, you can be holding the map and you're on the territory and you still may not be able to find your way because the territory is a whole different representation than that 2D map, right? So,
yep.
Yeah. And that's
cognitive landscapes. That's it. We're happy. Thank you, Carrie.
What we're gonna have to, Carrie's gonna have to trademark that one.
I would. Yeah. I like that.
Right. Well, everybody's just sort of commenting and doing their thing on the event page, and they're cool, I guess. So we'll wrap it up.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming. We appreciate it.
All right. And what we'll do, stay with us and follow for future videos, because I'm sure there will be points where, as Manny and I talk about specific applications, let's say issues, how we can use hypnosis and our understanding of neuroscience for how to help address particular issues. There will be times where we will be constructing suggestions that you could use for yourself, or that that you could use in self-hypnosis, or that we could help you formulate that might help you with some of this stuff. So we'll be modeling how to create suggestions as time goes on here in this space. So thanks so much for joining us.
I'm Dr. Manny St. Victor.
I'm Paul Ramsey.
All right, take care.
Catch you later.